Hi everyone, and welcome to course week 3. I'd like to start my podcast today by first congratulating all of you on your hard work last week. Last week was a very busy week in our course. Not only were you tasked with completing your first ever question and answer session, but you also were challenged with completing your first ever group or team activity. Overall, I thought the majority of you did a fantastic job in executing both of those tasks, so I wanted to start by applauding you on your perseverance and your efforts. So job well done. I've had the opportunity to mark and to post the grades for the question and answer sessions. I'm thrilled to be able to report that the average mark for last week's question and answer session was an A. Please take a few minutes to review your score to find out how you did. If your mark for that activity was lower than you had hoped, specifically if your mark was lower than a C grade, I'd like to encourage you to review last week's content before moving forward to this week's unit. In particular, I really found the assigned course textbook readings to be very helpful last week. Specifically, I thought the textbook did a good job at explaining the Canada Health Act, how that influences OHIP, the Ontario Drug Benefit Programs, the relationship to the Drug Interchangeability and Dispensing Fee Act, as well as off-formulary interchangeability and the influence that it has on third-party payers and cash-paying customers. So again, if you were unable to complete your assigned textbook readings from last week, or if your question and answer score was lower than you had hoped, please spend a few minutes to review that content before moving forward with this week's unit. Group activities last week, again, I felt on a whole they were very well done. The majority of the groups did a great job getting their scribe reports up on time. The majority of the groups were very active and made meaningful contributions to their small group areas throughout the week, which is fantastic. There were, however, a few groups that were a little bit challenged by last week's activity. We missed a few scribe reports. A few groups were a little bit slow, getting started. I'd like to encourage all of you, before we move forward to this week's group activity, to spend a few minutes to individually reflect upon the things that you felt worked well in your group and the things that you felt worked maybe not so well in your group. And I'd like you to share those reflections with your group prior to beginning this week's activity. My hope is that by sharing the things that you felt worked well, that you'd like to see continue to occur as you work through this week's group activity, as well as by identifying some of the things that maybe worked not so well, my hope is that you will be able to facilitate through and work your way through this activity a little bit easier with a little bit less stress. Your group activity this week is worth 5% of your final grade. It is due on Friday. You will remain in the same group that you worked with last week, and you will continue to use the same small group area that you worked in last week. So you could almost think of last week's activity as a dry run for this week's graded activity. Your topic this week is a little bit different. Your topic this week is comprised of two parts. Part one, I'd like you to explore within your group the typical day in a pharmacy. So I want you to identify, who are the key players, who is behind that counter, what knowledge, skills, and competencies does that person have, what does their scope of practice look like, what type of care and services are they able to provide to the patient? How are they spending their time? What tasks and roles are they fulfilling? The second part of your discussion is going to focus on the ideal day. So once you've determined what the typical day looks like, I want you to refer back through the literature to look at where you think pharmacy is headed in the future, where you think pharmacy should be headed in the future, based on the knowledge, skills, and competencies of the key players behind that pharmacy counter. So we know how they're spending their time, but how do you think they should be spending their time is really the key to the second part of the discussion. I encourage you to not only use the content and materials within Slate, the content and materials within your assigned textbook readings, but I encourage you to use the internet to look for additional articles to support your arguments and your ideas. In terms of what your final presentation looks like, you're more than welcome to complete a podcast if you like. If your preference is to do a formal report or a PowerPoint presentation, that's certainly okay too. The only thing that I will ask all groups to complete, regardless of the format that you choose to complete your final project in, is a reference page. I'd like you to make sure that you use APA referencing to cite all of the sources that you've used to back up your arguments, so all of your evidence or proof, if you will. Okay. Other than that, there will be a course survey that I will release this week. It's more of a self-reflection, self-assessment survey. I'd like you to take a few minutes to review that and complete that, please. I'm very much looking forward to reading your scribe reports this week. Certainly, if you have any questions or concerns, or if your group has any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out and to contact me. I'm more than happy to clarify anything that you feel that is not clear. So again, I'm very much looking forward to your scribe reports this week. I wish you much success as you work with your teams once again to complete this task. Cheers.